Hello everyone, Stephanie from Stephanie Stitches here. I'm here today to sew the first block from the Lucky Stars block of the month. I just wanted to give you a little tutorial on one of the blocks, and the blocks this month are exactly the same, so that makes it easier. We have a large one and a small one, and they're both hanging on the wall behind me. I'm going to do the small one today. They both sew up exactly the same. The only difference is the size. I'm not going to give out the cutting instructions or the size. I want to protect the pattern writer's pattern. I bought them for everyone who's part of the block of the month, and for anyone who's not and wants to sew along with us, you can buy the pattern directly from the pattern designer. She's got a PDF and a paper form, and then you can use your own fabrics. And I will put that link in the description box below. So let's get started. The first block is a reverse turn dash of sorts, and I'm going to start with what I consider the easy pieces, which are the little rectangles here next to the center block. Okay, so I'm going to put the colored piece and the white piece right sides together, making sure that I do a 1/4 inch. And it's okay if your 1/4 inch isn't perfect, as long as you sew consistently the same seam allowance throughout the whole program. If it's off, and say yours is 3/8 of an inch or a little less than a 1/4 of an inch, that's alright. Just make sure that you're sewing that same thing through the whole program, all the blocks, and you won't have a problem when it comes time to put your quilt top together. I'm going to chain piece these just to make it a little easier and quicker. If you don't know what chain piecing is, that's okay. So what I do is I will take my next piece. I sewed that one, and without cutting my thread or taking that piece away from my machine, I'm going to just sew on my next piece. We keep going. There's 4 of these all together for this block. And then you should have something, if you chain piece, that looks like this. Kind of looks like a flag. How fun. Then you can either snip these apart, or I've got this little chain piece cutter, which I sell in my Etsy shop, that uses a used rotary cutter blade. So you can recycle your rotary cutter blades and not throw them away. So it's kind of nifty because they're still sharp. They might not be sharp enough to cut your fabric anymore, but they're sharp enough to cut thread, for sure. And hair. I've got my hair in them before. So I'm just going to snip these apart with my little handy dandy cutter, and those are ready to go. They need to be ironed, which I will do in a minute. But before I iron, I'm going to go ahead and do the half square triangles. See, we're already halfway done. This is a really, really simple block. And I'm going to do the same thing with these. I am going to... Okay, so on half square triangles, if you've never made one before, you put the right sides together, the dark and the light fabric. I found it easiest when I was a beginner they say you can draw a line on either side of the center, a 1/4 inch away. You could just sew a line if you can eyeball it. But what I used to do when I was a beginner, so I'm going to show you all how to do that, because I know there's a lot of beginners with us, is I used to actually sew a line right down the middle. I know it might seem like a waste of time or a waste of thread, but 2 reasons I did that. Number 1, it gave me a guide for where to sew to the left and to the right, so the left and the right of the center 1/4 inch to make my half square triangles, but it also keeps the fabric from moving. So I'm going to do that first. So I've got a line right down the middle, and you can't really see that on camera because it's too light. So now that I have that line, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch to the right and a 1/4 inch to the left of that center. Flip it around to the other side. Okay, there's one. And I'm going to do the same with this piece. I'm going to go right down the center. Flip it around under the presser foot. I'm going to go to the left. And the other side. Okay, there's the half square triangles. The half square triangles make up these blocks here. So you should get 2 squares out of the triangles that you just sewed together. And the other good thing about the line down the middle is you have a guide as to where to cut. So I'm going to cut these right down the middle, right on that line that I stitched in the center. You can do this with a rotary cutter, or you can do this with a scissor. Scissors are here, so I'm just going to cut it with the scissors just to make it quick and easy. Cut both those. Okay. Then I'm going to take all these pieces and open them up, if my fingers will work. And see, you've got a square. So I'm going to finger press before I actually press them with the iron. And then I like to use, oh, it's empty. I found this product years ago and I really love it because it helps make your blocks nice and flat. You don't need it though. You can use best pressed, you can use steam if you like. It's a pressing pen. It's called the Easy Press Pen by Acorn. I just like how flat it makes my blocks. So if you use that, you put it right on the seam. I sort of finger press. Bring it over to my iron here. Press it nice and flat. Okay. So now I have a half square triangle. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the rectangle blocks. I'm going to use my Easy Press pen right on my seam. Technical difficulty. Long hair gets in the way. It's alright. Finger press and then use my iron to make it nice and flat. Okay. And there's the rectangle square. Now, I'm going to finish doing this and then I'll meet you back here and we'll continue on. Alrighty, I've pressed all my seams. Everything is nice and flat. Now we're going to sew the block together. So what I like to do, and this is up to you, you can do whatever way you want, but I like to lay it all out so I don't make a mistake and sew the blocks the wrong direction, because then we got to get jack out. And nobody likes to have jack out. So I'm going to lay my block out here on my table, making sure my pieces are going the correct direction. On the half square triangle blocks, you want the white in the corners facing out, the color kind of pointing in, and on the rectangle blocks you want the white in and the color out. And then you're going to have the one white block right in the center. So I'm going to grab, doesn't matter what order you grab them in, I'm going to grab the middle row first. I don't know, for some reason that seems easiest. So again, with a 1/4 inch seam, those two together. And you can go as fast or slow as you need to for this part, just keeping that 1/4 inch seam. Okay. That's one row done. Pretty easy breezy. That's looking right so far. Another row done. We have one more to go. You can pin or use wonder clips for this part to hold your pieces together. I'm able to just hold my pieces and kind of sew, but there's nothing wrong if you want to pin. Okay, that's my top row. Now we just have to put the rows together. And I have to get my presser foot. It's running away from me, or my pedal, I mean. Okay, so I'm just going to finger press this a little bit. If you like to press your seams open, go ahead and press them open. I like to press them to one side or the other, and I'm going to press mine, my top row, my bottom row out towards the gray. Because later on I don't want that gray showing through the white. Okay, and so that means the center row I'm going to press in, so when I put all 3 rows together, they nest really nicely. So that my block lines up perfectly. Now, I don't pin very often, but I'm going to pin this part because I want my rows to line up perfectly. So right where I press this seam this way and the one on the other piece the other way, I'm going to butt those right up against each other. You can kind of feel when they're kissing, sort of. I'm going to pin. Same thing down here. I'm going to nest those seams up and pin. And then I don't pin anywhere else on here, but if you want to pin at the start and at the finish to hold that together, that's totally up to you. Now that I have my pedal, I can sew. Likes to run away from me on this floor. It's nice to have a non-carpeted floor under where you sew because it's easy to clean up all those threads and things. But your foot pedal tends to walk away. Make sure that's still lined up. Yep. Alrighty. Open that up and check. Yep, my seams match up right where they should. Right there. Doing this backwards in the camera, so right there. Okay. Now let me do the last one. Nest those seams, pin. Nest those seams and pin. Put that pin away before I stick myself. And I'll line this end up. Slow down for a second on line this. Okay, all done with that one. I don't have my iron on to iron this out, but here's the block. And this is the large, this is the small. I just made another small. So I have 2 more of these to make and 2 more of the large to make, and that will complete month 1. So I'm partway there. So exciting. Thanks for joining me today in sewing block 1 of the Lucky Stars block of the month. I hope I helped you just a little bit. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can find me on Facebook, or if you are here because you're part of the Lucky Stars block of the month Facebook group and you found me through that, you can post questions in the Facebook group. Post pictures of the blocks you've made, or if you have any sort of, you need help with a certain thing, you can always post a picture of it and ask somebody for help. There's lots of ladies there that I'm sure are more than willing to give you some good advice. Thanks for stopping by, and thank you for sewing with Becca and I. Take care.